And we're going to go start recording.
Recording started.
Recorded live.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation or around the world. Once again, you're listening to the VMware Community's Roundtable Podcast. This is podcast number 453, I believe. My name is Eric Nelson, and with me, my co-host, John White. John, how you doing?
How's it going, Eric? I was across the San Mateo Bridge early this morning, so it was early enough that it was the color of the bay was black. It was dark, and it was also foggy. You know, we have those mornings where you get the fog rolling in. So when I got on the bridge, the San Mateo Bridge, for people who don't know, is about 7 miles long. I could not see the other side. It was just like driving into blankness. It was always a little bit disconcerting, but.
It has been very, very misty, and I get a little bit of that winter sense. I actually thought a little bit about the winter season coming up and possibly getting some snow. We had a little rain. So Bay Area, it's starting to cool down a little bit, and we're definitely getting into that season. I actually like California this way sometimes, right? You get so used to the dry season that when the fog starts to roll in over and you feel that cool air, it feels a little bit like Christmas season's headed our way.
Yeah.
Really fun.
That's what passes for winter season is it's 50 degrees in the morning. It's still 85 in the afternoon.
So shout out to everybody listening. Thanks a lot for downloading. We are on live stream again today. Hey guys, how's it going? We don't have a guest today, but we are going to talk about some of the stuff that I've learned on AWS, some good AWS stuff happening around the company, as well as some news items we've heard about, some stuff in India that we could talk about. So share some insights of kind of the things that are happening around VMware that we're hearing about, as well as leading up to VMworld in Europe and the AWS show. So, and just AWS in general. So we did announce the Cloud Health acquisition, so we can talk about Cloud Health now. We weren't allowed to talk about that until this show, so we'll spend a little bit of time talking about Cloud Health. I've learned some stuff about it, and then we'll go forward. But before we get into Cloud Health and AWS and all that, what's happening with regard to VMworld? I guess VMworld is maybe 3 weeks away now in Europe, so still time to sign up and reg. Reg is on track, but we could always use more people there. So if you know somebody they want to bring to VMworld Europe, definitely get them going. I know we're going to be there full force. We've seen the full booth layout again, 2 theaters, the code sessions, Raspberry Pis, all of the stuff we had in US is going to be there, including our blockchain implementation with Code Coin, so you can earn some coins. Maybe get yourself one of those cool bomber jackets.
Very cool.
Very, very nice jacket. Along with sensors, we're going to be giving away some of the Raspberry Pi barometric pressure sensors and some of that stuff for in the code area. And then V Brown Bag's going to be there full force. We have Valdecir Calvejo is announced the vExpert Pro program. He's going to be there. Talk a little bit about vExpert Pro as we go. So we got VMworld coming up. What else do you have? Do you have anything, John, that you want to share with the world with regards to news?
Yeah, I saw really interesting coverage of Pat Gelsinger, the VMware CEO, at the Best of Breed conference, which is a solution provider conference, and that was from Monday. And he said something which was pretty thought-provoking, which was VMware's internal count of security tools that we use from third-party providers has dropped to 20. And so I had 2 different kind of conflicting feelings about that. One is kind of my small business background, which was, wow, 20 is a huge number. And then my experience with my customer base, of enterprises, which is, that feeling was, wow, only 20, right? Like, I want to say the average number of security tools maybe that was quoted was over 50. And in some cases it can be like, 70 or more for audit, for compliance, for all those different things. And it was just I think he also said that he wanted to drop it, in the future down to below 15. And the idea being that VMware's core product line just, encompasses full end-to-end security, so that we can use fewer products in general. Just the idea being the more tools you have, the more management, the more patching, the more integration points, the more fragility that you have in your security stack. It was something I want to say I found it to be a pretty audacious statement to make, that, hey, we just want to swallow up that entire field, and not so much swallow up functionality. It was just, why don't we just bake those kind of end-to-end security, encryption, on disk, data in flight, end-to-end networking, all of those things, just have that as core functionality of our product stack.
Yeah, it's absolutely a move that we're making. I see it even when we were looking at what are we going to be promoting at AWS, right? We work with Raghuram. We met with Raghu. We talked to him about what we're doing with AWS, and he gave us some of his team members to work with to look at the overall strategy,
right.
The big things that we want to, and the narrative around cloud, because cloud has been kind of in the company all over the place. But one of the big ones that Raghu talked to us about was the cloud security and compliance.
Yeah.
Right? It is one of the functions. Even if you look at serverless computing strategies, right, and how to build your app across nodes and not worry about what server it's on. You still have to worry about security. You have to worry about app security. You have to, that's the modern day, concern in cloud and hybrid cloud is what's the security model and how are you providing security across all your applications?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just, more and more companies, as, we integrate across multiple different product lines and multiple different cloud providers, and your core product becomes more and more about software. And I'm not talking about VMware. I'm talking about, people in the IT operations world and just companies in general, right? It used to be that, you might have some kind of core competency, but more and more the core value that you're providing, there's a physical presence, but there's also, an integrated software presence. And just to have that data not vulnerable, not something that can not just be read, but what if, somebody gets into your, I don't know, again, so I worked for a wholesale distributor. You can imagine if you're a wholesale distributor of hard goods and somebody gains access not just to your financials, but what about just central operations and just starts changing inventory levels for different products and costs of goods sold and things like that. If you can't trust the data that you have about your business, it's almost like you're very quickly out of business, right?
Right, and it's hard to know who's doing what with what data breaches that you do have.
Yep.
But it's one of those things. If you look at the micro server incidents in China where they're embedding a chip on the Ethernet controller to be able to watch Ethernet traffic.
Yep.
What do you do with that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, it's very interesting because that again is in news, and my thoughts about that story that. It was very mixed. One was, embedded hardware onto a motherboard, taking control, that is a very scary idea. But then my secondary thought was, oh, wait, at least my orientation on these types of things is very kind of VMware centric and network centric and monitoring network traffic. And the news reporting about that story was about, and just to back up, we're talking about this Business Week story about apparently I would say pencil tip sized chips being embedded as a compromise onto hardware motherboards to then compromise control over apparently now network controllers. And part of me again was like, wow, that's game over. You can compromise any server anywhere. And then my secondary thought was, well, actually, that's not that big of a deal. We monitor network traffic very, very strictly, at that network layer. So the reporting was like, whoa, these pings can go out, and if it's just one or two, people almost, it's like a blip on a security camera. Oh, you got a little bit of static, you tap it, and it came back. You don't pay attention anymore. And I was like, oh, that is not how security operations and network operations is. If you have errant pings going out to random IP addresses, you pay very, very close attention to what's going on there and what that means. So, especially in today's security climate, and you might have firewalled networks, so just even the attempt to find a route to those IP addresses is paid attention to. So,
Yeah.
Maybe a big deal, and also maybe very, very detectable these days, right?
So in the end, we are getting into security. I'm not sure how much of our security solutions, you have network security. We're talking about that with NSX, and I'm not sure how much of this. There's levels of security. There's the business security. There's then you get into the CIA level of security,
Sure.
which nobody's convinces me that we're not doing the same type of stuff. I mean, I know that our government has reached out to all the major vendors and talked to them about being able to sniff in OSs and put backdoors in OSs. And I honestly don't believe that you're not going to convince me that they don't have that, right? That they do have that. That would be my guess. I don't have any knowledge of that, but that would be my assessment, right? So there's different levels. There's government security, then there's hacker security, there's business security, and so there's different levels of that. When you get into nationwide, nations and their security apparatus at the nation level, nation states, I don't think that we even understand the level of which those guys are actually doing. And this chip insertion is just another level at that level, which I'm not sure, people aren't listening to all the conversations that are happening across the globe at any given time. So, but that's business security. I think it makes sense. User security, application security. I like all that, and that's where we're going. And so it is interesting. We are getting there, and that's absolutely one of the ones that we'll be talking about when we're at AWS. Right?
Yeah. So, it just got me thinking a little bit more about security, and I went out to. So there's these videos about physical security that I watch too. A lot of the Black Hat and just the various conventions out there. You get a lot of security discussion, and there's this interesting video about physical security, and there's a company that does pen testing, and I'm blanking. I didn't write it down, but if you go to YouTube and look for the search for the perfect door. It's a really cool video about just the easy compromises to physical security that we don't pay attention to at the lock level and the door level. And it's things like gaps in the door that you can stick a wire through and then kind of pull down on the handle from the other side that you have to have for fire codes. It's just really interesting stuff that I never thought about, and it's an interesting view on security that is you need to pay attention to those kinds of things. I think those are a lot easier than compromising the supply chain of your computer hardware. Just getting access to a data center,
right?
If you're not hosted somewhere.
Yep. All right. So moving on, we'll
Yep.
talk a little bit about what's happening across AWS. I think there's some interesting things that we're going to be doing there. One is we should talk about cloud health. So I'll rattle through the subjects that we can chat today,
Sure.
right? And then we'll attack each one of them. Cloud health, big announcement there, and we'll talk a little bit about what cloud health is and why it's important, and how much market share they have, right? So that's an interesting one. VMC and AWS, we're going to be talking about VMC and infrastructure as a service and what that means. VKE, we had a VKE guest on, finally figured out what VKE is, right? And how that works. So good there. Cloud security and compliance, we're going to be there. NSXT, we're talk about NSXT and being able to run NSXT native on AWS. So there is our infrastructure that we can support, but then there's also just running their elastic compute environment, and then NST can plug into that, right? So we're going to be there. And then, of course, Wavefront, SRM, Horizon, RDS, and Greengrass. RDS and Greengrass fall into the category of things that Amazon will run in your data center on vSphere.
Right.
So a little bit of different subjects there. And so those are the kind of the big buckets that we're going to go to AWS and talk about. So we can tick through some of these. The goal for us at AWS is to let everyone know that comes to reInvent that VMware is a premier provider of solutions on AWS, or
Right.
VMware gets sold on Amazon, right?
Right,
Amazon sells VMware software, and that we have a lot of different solutions that are running native on AWS, as well as infrastructure as a service that we offer on AWS, and then as well as AWS software inside of vSphere on-prem.
Right.
So really good solutions there. And then the most interesting one is Cloud Health, the fact that we bought it. So this really changes, for me, the game of what VMware is, right?
Right.
I think when we bought NSX, or I think, what was it, Nicira back in the
Nicira,
day,
right.
that actually fundamentally changed who VMware was, where VMware predominantly was compute, right? Didn't really have vSAN out yet, right? We bought Nicira, and all of a sudden we went from compute to compute and network, right?
Right.
Then we implemented vSAN, and we were compute, network, and storage. But it really did change where we the way we went after the market, expanded who we are. We've been dabbling in AWS and cloud, right? And we say we have hybrid cloud and we have cloud vendors. But if you look at the predominant sales, we're still selling vSphere, now NSX, and vSAN, right? And even though we talk about Amazon and we talk about what we can do there, if you look at our business, how much business we're doing there, it's 10% maybe if we're lucky.
Mm-hmm.
So it really didn't change fundamentally who we were as a company. But if you look at the Cloud Health acquisition, so Cloud Health is, my assessment is it's a management app that manages the delivery of, or the consumption of, Amazon workloads. Right. So, and this is the way enterprises can manage what's spinning up and spinning down in their AWS environments. And the stat that I thought was compelling was Cloud Health manages 25% of all Amazon workloads.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's stunning.
Yeah. So in a one fell swoop, just like we bought Nicira and ended up in the networking business, right? And being a serious player in the networking business, the purchase of Cloud Health puts us in the Amazon business,
Yeah.
right? In the AWS business, where 25% of all Amazon workloads now are being managed by something that VMware provides to AWS customers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Which is pretty much a game changer when you talk about what are we offering up to customers. Before that, it was kind of like, well, we've introduced VMC and AWS, and that's certainly an interesting infrastructure as a service, offering, right? And we certainly offer then solutions where, SRM, right? Would take advantage of that. Where if you want to do site recovery manager, you want to build an extra data center, you can just use platform as a service. We have VMC and AWS. Add it to my enterprise deal. It's kind of one of these things that I'll get to, right? And some people are starting to get serious about it, and that's good. And we certainly have now 500 to 1,000 customers that are in various stages of implementation of that. But when you talk about now buying something like Cloud Health, that's a whole different ballgame.
What's interesting, I think, that you're pointing out to me, and I hadn't really put this together yet, but Cloud Health's business is really focused on people who are using native AWS services.
Yep.
So
Yep.
for VMware to purchase a company that is not focused on on-prem infrastructure, at least maybe 50-50 or even 60-40, cloud and versus on-prem, it's I want to say like 80-20 focused on cloud infrastructure versus on-prem infrastructure.
Yeah, probably 99-0.
Right.
Like, and I think our purchase is to actually come back and bring that back into your hybrid cloud environment on-prem, where now you can manage all of your workloads through one, interface, right? And they've got all the AWS customers or 20. It's a gorilla in this space, right? And then being able to extend that into on-prem data centers as well, probably one of our strategies.
Right.
And so that's where you step back and you go, wow. And it's funny because we've been patting ourselves on the back for the last 3 weeks, ever since VMworld, in where we had the community booth and we were packed the whole time. And the AWS people came by, saw that we had the code area, it was packed. We had vBrownBag, it was packed. We had Blogger tables, we had the Makerspace labs, and we had been trying to get a booth in at AWS reInvent for the last 6 months. And we get these outrageous quotes like $350,000 for a 10 by 20 foot, which is that's like a tiny that gets us 12 chairs and nothing, right?
Wow.
And that's how much it was. But when the AWS reInvent people were at VMworld, because they were there, they had a big presence
Seeing
there.
what you're doing.
They came by, they saw what we were doing, they invited us up for a meeting, and all of a sudden they gave us a 35 by 35 foot experience in their Makerspace hotel, the area.
Right.
All of a sudden we're like, wow, they saw us, they got us, they got what we were about.
Right.
But they also knew we were buying Cloud Health. And all of a sudden we got this sweet deal to have a big space, prominent space in AWS. And that's just a factor that just reflects that they knew VMware was showing up to the party now, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you guys credit more than Cloud Health, maybe, and maybe that's just my optimistic view. I think that the VM Village and the VMTN space has to be seen to be understood. Maybe, once you understand that you're bringing in people and you're bringing in like a community sense and peer-to-peer networking and presentations, like I think when I saw it for the first time a few years back, it really did click for me. Right. And it's just gotten bigger and better. So sure, maybe Cloud Health has influenced that, but I'm gonna give the team a little bit more credit.
Now the interesting thing in listening to Raghu and Guido, who worked for Raghu, is that we are definitely seeing our business shift. Right, like VMware is shifting business, right, to AWS as a premier piece of our strategy.
Yeah.
It's like NSX, vSAN, compute, and AWS, all at the tier 1 level.
Right.
And then products and offerings across the board. Right.
Yep.
So it was, your data center, we enabled your data center, and then we got into NSX, which, webbed out into network infrastructure. But now I just see, and if you look at their roadmap and what they're talking about from what products we're going to have on AWS, it's everything.
Yeah.
Right? And by the way, it's not just everything. We're going to buy big pieces of other companies, such as Cloud Health, and we're going to offer up solutions on AWS native, and then backport it into your data center.
It's really interesting because I've had a kind of wide and diverse customer base in my portfolio, and a message that I kept on hearing from a significant fraction of those customers was, we're trying to kind of get out of the data center business. Data center operations is not core to our business. So if you're a financial services company, you might have a significant portion of the value of your company is generated in software running on technology. But the data center operations, the server racking and stacking, the network design, how much value is that adding to the company?
Right.
Your ability to find real estate for those data centers to sit in. Is that really a value add to the company? Is that something you can rent? And coloing is like a really good first step to outsourcing that to somebody else. But then, is the VMware installation and bring up, is that adding value to the company, or is it the software afterwards that's really adding value? And so I think that we really have gotten into that space. And for some companies, the answer to that question is yes, it is adding value. We feel like we can do it better, cheaper, faster than a cloud provider, or we can add stability for baseline workloads at a lower cost, and that's great. So we have a solution for that. And for the companies who just want to get out of that business and rent it from somebody else, as a service, now we have a really tier 1 solution for that, and that's amazing to go from that.
And if you look at, the implication to practitioners as a whole, I mean, this has to be a journey for everybody, right?
Oh, yeah.
I think our VKE guest last week, I forget his name already, Art. I think his name was Art. He talks about that, this is our career moving forward into the kind of the true cloud environment, right? Where these things are things that we're going to be selling, that we're all going to have to get to, right? And sitting around managing your VMs and managing, running on vSphere and running vCenter to manage all that is nice, but this is expanding, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it makes me feel young again, right? I need to get an earring and shape my head and be super cool because it is kind of a generational thing, and the way people attack computing and cloud computing now. Right?
Absolutely.
So,
we made that. I think I always make this analogy is like 10 years ago, if you're in data center operations, maybe a big part of the value that you were bringing to the organization was your ability to specify a computer, down to the motherboard and chipset level, and figure out which of 30 companies you're actually going to buy this computer build from, and that has gone away. That is not at all like the business that IT operations is in anymore. There's maybe 4 people that you would buy a server class computer from, and honestly, you probably have a preferred provider, and it's just really about selecting the platform and the t-shirt size, and then running your technology on top of it.
Yeah. And next thing, all right, so that's Cloud Health. So if you haven't learned about Cloud Health, we're going to have Cloud Health sessions at AWS. We will live stream them.
Nice.
So Julia, our amazing live streamer, will be there, and we will be live streaming the Cloud Health sessions as well as sessions across all these categories. I think we're going to have like 60 sessions at our booth with a super cool theater. So if you happen to be interested in coming to Vegas, I would come to Vegas. Nice. I would get a day pass. I would come by. I would see what we're doing, run into this, and get exposed to some of these sessions, or at least check it out on the live stream, which we will promote. So that's Cloud Health, which I think is a game changer for us. And as we learn more about it, we'll bring some guests. We're going to have some speakers there, and we'll hopefully get one of the guests on the podcast the next couple of weeks just to talk about what they're going to be talking about at AWS. And then the Cloud Health team does have their own booth at AWS, so they've got a lot of other things they're doing as we absorb them. The other one that Raghu and them talked about, and I learned a little bit about this in having meetings with them to kind of get the whole AWS strategy. I learned a little bit, and VMC on AWS, right? It's like, okay, we know what that is, but I've always had rumors and had the assumption that if you wanted to run vSphere on Amazon, that there's probably a backdoor way to run it native, right? That you could go get some compute resources at Amazon and then put whatever payload I want. And I know that they've done that with NSX, where you can get a Linux kernel and you can hack it and then run NSX on it, NSXT, and then create your own virtual network to your own data center and run workloads out on AWS, and then have network connectivity, secure network connectivity back to your own data center.
Right.
So I know that's been there, but I also assume that you could also run other pieces of the stack in similar fashion, right? But the answer was from them, no, you can't, right? There is no way to run vSphere in Amazon services right now in AWS. So if you really do want to have vSphere or our stack running, you do need to get VMC. Right? And that the 400 engineers they've got working on the whole stack is to just be able to enable that.
Right.
Which I didn't really get. I just assumed that VMC on AWS was kind of like a bundled offering for us. If you want one throat to choke, you could buy our offering, and that's how you got vSphere there. And then we could support that through enterprise services, and one place to just buy all your licenses.
Right.
But the reality is what they enlightened me was, no, you can't really do that. That if you want to run vSphere over on Amazon, this is the only way to do it.
Right.
I'm still not sure I'm totally convinced that's the case, right? I want anybody that's listening to this to reach out to me. Eric and I Pro is my Twitter handle, and let me know if anybody's figured out how to run it. You can run hypervisors all over the place, right? So
there is a thing on Amazon called the i5 Metal instance,
Okay.
which is the hardware platform that they released after VMware Cloud and AWS became a thing.
Okay.
They said, "Oh, okay, so VMware's getting this bare metal service. Like, we're going to try to release that out to everybody." So I don't know how big of a seller that is, and I have heard, I don't have first hand experience, that installing vSphere on this instance is not easy.
Okay,
It's
right.
not a trivial thing, and it's also quite an expensive
Offering from them.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fully loaded server, right? So then to run vSphere, you're really talking about like a 3-node cluster, and
Right.
and so even just the orchestration and coordination
Right.
there is non-trivial.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to do that. You're
Yeah.
paying $20,000 a year for a $20,000 server.
Right.
Right. All right. So that's what I'm still tracking that one down because when we're at AWS doing kind of tech sessions, it would be fun to have a tech session that talked a little bit about, what are the other alternatives? Can I run ESX, on some kind of native gear that
Right.
Amazon offers? The top level guy said, no, you can't do that. We don't support, there's nothing there, but I'm not certain that is the case. There might be some of these odd offerings that you can go do that.
There's only 2 bare metal offerings that I'm aware of, and one is the i5 metal and the other is the R5 metal. And again, I think installing vSphere is non-trivial,
Right.
and it might not. You might be able to hack it together, but how stable it is an open question.
And just an aside, speaking of hypervisors, we are going to have the Raspberry Pis there. We are doing these kind of like data collection, cool sensors. We got 10 cool sensors that are going to be there. And the reason I bring this up when we're talking about hypervisors is that we did get a blog article from somebody in the CTO office, I think, that has ESX running on an ARM chip. Right.
Okay.
Now the size of the ARM environment that he's got it running on, that's the real question. It's not a Raspberry Pi.
No, it's
so
larger.
So the question is, can we make that work on a Raspberry Pi? So we are going to be trying to do that in the booth as well as one of the fun projects that we've got going on. Hypervisors everywhere. And
We're famously proud for the small footprint of our hypervisor, so I would be interested to find out whether the Raspberry Pi platform is large enough
to do that. And you can buy different Raspberry Pis. They got memory, soldered in on them, although I'm not sure. And as long as we're on that, I'll just run through real quick, and then we'll get back to the main subjects. You want to hear what the top 10 sensors we're going to have for the Raspberry Pi?
Ooh, I want to hear.
At the
Yes,
AWS?
definitely.
Okay. So number 1, these are not in any particular relevant order, so it's not really a top 10 list. It's just 10.
A list of 10.
Right. The BMP 280 is a barometric pressure sensor, so we did that at VMworld, so we're going to also have that there. Another one, the second one we've got is an MQ2 gas sensor. So this measures various gases in the air. One of them is alcohol gas. So we can then, if you drink a beer and you come and you breathe into it, you can get your gas level, how much alcohol, and you can actually.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, kind of make a little drunk sensor.
I was wondering, so the thing that immediately popped in my mind was actually carbon monoxide.
Yeah, and I don't remember. It did have various gases. I'm not sure it had carbon dioxide. The sensor does like 5 different gases. The one that was easy to talk about was alcohol, and we could do it as a demo in the booth. So
5 different gases. So,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so
argon,
we had
radon. It had weird ones. Right.
We had a skunk outside my house last night, so that's probably not on the list.
So somebody in the chat, if you want to, I'll watch chat. You can go look up MQ2 and read off what gases it does, and then I'll talk about it if you want to do that. But I don't have time to sit and use my browser here and go look up which ones it does while we're talking about it. The third one is PIR motion sensor, which actually does near-far sensing, so you can see who's walking by the room and do that. So that's a pretty neat one. Not super neat, but we'll have it there. And how you get these sensors, we're going to give the sensors away. So if you come and watch some of the sessions that we have in our super cool super cool theater. Then we'll give away sensor cards, and you can go pick up the sensors from the desk, right? So you will have 10 sensors. We're buying these. All these are like $2 to $4 sensors, so we should be able to buy enough of them to just give them away. We're going to have big sensor bins, like Lego bins, where you can come through and see all the sensors, and then we'll do sessions on each sensor throughout the day. So we'll do a couple sessions for each sensor, so you can learn what the sensors do and how to write code to make it work. We haven't.
MQ2 is H2, so that's hydrogen.
Yep.
LPG, like propane.
Yep.
CH4 and CO, so carbon monoxide.
So it does do carbon dioxide.
Yeah, alcohol and smoke actually.
Oh
So
yeah,
it's
that's right.
Combustible gases.
You can do
and smoke.
you could do smoke. Yeah, so you could make a smoke detector as well out of it. So
very cool.
Kind of neat. I thought the alcohol one was the best one to talk about when we're at a tech show.
Yeah, I think it might be difficult. It might just be always going off.
Well, and the other thing is, I did consider smoke, but I'm like, I don't think we want to encourage people to like lighting little fires in the booth to kind of like
probably
test their sensors. So we thought we would just bring in like a couple 6-packs of beer and then just let people drink, have a drink, and then
I'm seeing the
breathe into their sensor.
Headlines now, like VMTN community booth burns down AWS VMware.
Yeah, the whole hotel. That'd be great. Okay, so let's see. We have a HC SR04 ultrasonic sensor. Measures the distance from object with sound. So it sends out a sound wave. Has 2 little cones. It's a pretty cool looking sensor, right?
Wow.
Yeah, so that was good. And all these are just pin outs so that we have little wires that you can connect them right to your Raspberry Pi. So no soldering required in the booth, so it should be a lot of fun.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is taking longer than I thought, but hey, we'll do the rest of them. Why not? An RFID card reader, so they give you a little reader plus a little card, so you have both, and that you can then get an ID pulled in, and then see the ID and pass that up data.
So you can build your own RFID card stealer is
Yeah.
what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Now these are all kind of hacky little things you can do. I mean,
I just
what
saw
are you
a
going to
Black
do
Hat
with it?
session on that, so that's why I'm thinking about this.
That should be fun. One of my favorite ones is the MPU 6050 gyroscope reader. So it has a gyroscope. It has an accelerator sensor in it as well. So you can get X, Y, and Z coordinates as well as movement coordinate. Accelerometer. Yeah, pretty slick, right? So what you would typically use in a quadcopter. So some of these guys build Raspberry Pi, little mini Raspberry Pi controlled quadcopters. There's software out there that you can get, and it uses this little sensor, acceleration and gyroscope to be able to keep your quadcopter level.
Open source quadcopter.
Yeah, they have it. Yeah, you can go get it.
Of course that would exist. That's amazing, guys. Amazing.
You can actually 3D print, all the parts too. So
my goodness.
You can get the board, you can get the software, you get the couple sensors, and then you can 3D print. You do have to get little motors, right?
Yeah,
you have to buy some stuff, but
we live in the future.
Yeah, sure. Okay. That's all cool. EMC 583L GY-271. That's kind of a long one. Compass, so you can get it gives you a compass, so now you can fly in a direction, and you can write software that controls where you're going. There was a sensor, but it was a little too expensive. I think it was like $7. It would be too expensive to buy it, which is a GPS sensor. They did have a GPS sensor, but I just didn't put it on the list because it was going to be. But we are going to have a few of these. We're going to buy maybe 10 or 15 of these cooler, more expensive sensors, and then give them away as kind of prizes along the 4-day event. So now, I'm getting you convinced that maybe you should come AWS. Plus, we'll have all the true AWS vCloud Health, VMCN AWS, VKE, Cloud Security, NS6T, Wavefront, SRM, Horizon, RDS, Greengrass. All these things are going to have presentations throughout the week, but also we're going to do all the fun stuff as well with the sensors. There is the next one, which I think is also really cool, is a raindrop sensor. Kind of little pad with little dots on it, and then it'll measure moisture. So
wow.
Yeah, so if you want to make one of these projects, you can do is you can make a little thing that you sit out in your yard that'll turn on your sprinklers or turn off your sprinklers if
if it senses rain.
Yeah, if it senses rain. So you can,
of course.
You can do those kind of little projects. But humidity, any kind of water app you can do. Another one we're going to give away is the 7-segment display. So a digital display 00.00, so that you can write some apps that give you numbers and counters and things like that. So it's a little digital display.
When I was in school, our project was always program your own reverse Polish notation calculator. That was the old HP system for doing calculus reverse Polish notation.
Right.
And
Nice.
yeah, so that's immediately what comes to mind.
I'm trying to think I had an HP 12C. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's the financial one. I want to say
It's the financial one, but you're still
Yeah.
storing in the register and then adding.
Yeah, exactly.
At the end.
That's it,
store
exactly.
one, so put in register one, put in register, and then
Right.
add. Which, as a computer science guy, I loved it. Right,
Yeah.
even though I did business and computer science and a little bit of marketing I did all that during university. I love the idea that you were just storing things in registers and adding them.
Right. When I first took my first computer science class and they floated the idea of queues, I immediately understood what that was because I'd been using this RPN calculator my whole life. Right?
Yep. Yeah, easy to do. And then finally, the last one we have is a small joystick. So sensor that basically has 2 X-axis joysticks, which give you
Potentiometer.
Something. Potentiometers. I don't know. Maybe I
So
spelled it wrong. But it's a little mini joystick controller that you can have.
Yeah.
Right. So all these things are things that we're going to then have little labs for, so you can do. So it's kind of like in the makerspace area of AWS, but then we got our theater. And to get these sensors, you go sit through a real talk, and then you get a sensor card at the end of it, and you can go choose whichever sensor you want to get.
Oh, very cool.
And then we have lab spaces with proctors that'll help you build and use that to upload your data into the cloud. And then we will have a Wavefront instance with sessions on Wavefront to grab that data. And then if you move the joystick around, it'll send that data up, and then you can graph it in Wavefront to see what you're doing on your thing.
So I'm imagining like having this alcohol meter like embedded like a microphone near my mouth, and then over the course of the show or the course of an evening, as I have a drink or two, maybe sending all that information to Wavefront, and it can graph and tell me exactly what my alcohol level is coming out of my mouth.
Now, not to feel bad if you're listening to this and you are going to VMworld Europe, I might buy some of these sensors and just bring them along for fun, even though we didn't have them for US.
Mm-hmm.
Since we are doing some of this and you're interested in it and you've heard it on the podcast, you can come up and chat, and I'll have some, I'm sure.
The runway to AWS reInvent is a little bit longer than to Barcelona.
Yeah, that's right. We got till the end of November for AWS, but the AWS, if you're interested in going to reInvent, schedule builder for them opens up tomorrow.
Okay.
So we're busy trying to get our sessions in. We don't have our session IDs yet. We're probably going to miss it we're probably going to be there by the end of the week. So,
Awesome.
But if you are going to the show, we will be in their content calendar and schedule builder free mobile app. So you'll be able to search us, and we'll give out session IDs as we get closer and get those in maybe by the end of the week.
Awesome.
All right, so we're moving on. So VMC on AWS, we got that. It is platform. It's an infrastructure as a service, and it is the way to basically get vSphere everywhere. So
Right.
it makes a lot of sense. VKE, we talked about on the last show, so go listen to podcast number 452, I believe, and listen to VKE. It's basically container as a service on AWS.
We talked about it in the last 10 minutes, and it was differentiated instead of renting the service and having it be on-prem, something that you have to install. It's something that's provided as a service, I believe, out of the Amazon cloud. So it's another one of our Amazon Cloud Native services, and it's just a Kubernetes as a service managed by you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, and Kubernetes with a K or a C.
Yeah.
Right? It just depends on which way you want to run it with it.
Kubernetes as a service or a container service.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of stuff there, and we will have some presentations on serverless computing and infrastructure. We have open source projects that we're working on that we have VMware contributors to, and for serverless computing. There's a name of the open source project, but I don't know what it is yet, and we're arranging speakers for that, so we'll be there talking about VKE. I think we're going to have 5 or 6 VKE sessions, and then and a couple other Kubernetes ones that are interesting that'll be there, and it's all based on what's on AWS and what's available as a service for us. So good stuff there, which gets us into this, like, hey, we've got products that are running on AWS, right? We're like a book manufacturer, and as an IT practitioner, you're going to want to learn this and add it to your repertoire as your customers start nibbling at what does it mean to have a true hybrid cloud, one on AWS. And the more interesting thing with the whole strategy is we're also working with Microsoft and Azure. We're also working with Google, right?
Right.
And we're working with IBM. So all of these solutions, whether it be Cloud Health or VMC or others, will have similar offerings with the same API set, right, and services that are multi-cloud, so that now you're not, if you are using this, you can deploy your workload through vCloud Health. You can imagine, we haven't announced anything like this yet, but you can imagine if you are managing your workloads on vCloud Health, you can select which cloud vendor makes sense for you for what applications and what region of the world.
Right.
Yeah.
To track those costs.
Yeah, true multi-cloud solutions from VMware, right?
It's interesting because I want to say, and man, don't quote me on this, but I want to say, I think AirWatch, when we purchased them, their instances were running in Amazon. So that might have been the first
one that
cloud service that we offered. And then, of course, Wavefront is a native service to Amazon. And it's almost incidental, right? It's like, the value of the service is what it is, not the fact that it's built in Amazon, except the infinite scalability.
And then we can't skip, so we talk about Wavefront. Obviously, we've had Bill Roth on the show a couple times.
Yeah.
Data visualization, great way to collect data from all these different devices and then visualize them and then get intelligence about them and then build apps around what you're looking at.
Right.
Which they have all API set for. But then we can't also skip Horizon.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, the whole, desktop and cloud, right? So that's also a solution that we've got. And so, again, we start looking at all the services. We better get out of the business of racking and stacking servers, right?
Yeah. So I think especially, when you don't know what a new business or, venture is going to do, or business unit is trying a new service, to have those kind of variable workloads, if you try something and it's super successful and you need to scale it by 2x or 3x or 100x or 1000x, I mean, to be able to do that in the cloud is so much easier than to do it, in your on-prem data center.
Yeah, absolutely. But then you have to have budget as well. So these things do cost money.
Well, that goes back to your business model. Better incorporate charging for the thing that you're building. Right. Somebody has to be accountable for those costs. And if it grows by 100x, but the cost needs to stay exactly the same, well then, that wasn't built in. You need to go back and rethink that.
Right. And then the easy on-ramp, I want to say the gateway drug for cloud is SRM, right?
Yes.
If you got your data center already there and you just need some site recovery management, framework, we've got that there.
Yeah, and we talked to GS Kalsa maybe about a month ago now, and that was really eye-opening, this idea that you could just have kind of a constant instance that's not doing much except your pilot-like workloads, attach the R5 metal instance and have it scale up in storage. All you really need to do is pay for the amount of storage that you're using, along with the kind of baseline smaller entry-level cluster. And then if you actually need to spin up disaster recovery or test disaster recovery, then all you do is pay for the cycles that you're using, for the time that you're using it for the testing or for the actual DR event, as opposed to paying for all those servers.
All those servers sitting there just waiting for some event that might happen.
Doing nothing, yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a really good business model, right? That's just the way to go.
Yeah. Right? And I've talked to customers, again, where they're grappling with how to pay for the financial model of disaster recovery. And either it's, our app dev teams are going to be, using that hardware. And if we have a testing or an event, then basically their stuff gets, shut down with 4 minutes notice. But then, dev test, starts to become, kind of critical to the business, right? Like you can't just shut down for 30 days, because of a DR event, that'll impact a business initiative or delivering a new service, So it's a conundrum, right?
Right. Well, we're reaching up to the top of the hour. So, John White, how do people follow you on Twitter? That's just and the closing interview, right? And what is your major challenges for the next 12 months? And where are you going to be? And what are you going to be doing?
I am on Twitter at VJourneyman. I have another podcast that I do, the Nerd Journey podcast, talking about navigating the IT career. So that's at Nerd Journey, or nerd-journey.com. If you want to talk about IT career management and progression. I'm around the Bay Area, so if you're ever coming through, please feel free to reach out to me and we can grab lunch or a snack together, coffee, whatever. I think that I don't have any strict travel. I take that back. I'm going to be in Minnesota on Monday and Tuesday.
I'm not going anywhere except
Minnesota. And I think I'm going to be in Raleigh in about a month for customer visits. Other than that, I don't know that reInvent is on my schedule. Maybe I'll talk to my manager today, figure out if I can work that in. I know that I will not be in Barcelona unless I hit the lottery, which is very unlikely because I do not play.
Yes, there you go. Well, that's good. So, V Journeyman, nice to always have you here. And and the Bay Area, the Bay is black today, so we're dark gray or whatever the color was.
It was black this morning. I'll tell you that much.
You come early enough now.
Black water.
I will be, and the team will be in Barcelona. One announcement to make, which is kind of a little bit sad. I don't know if I told people this or not yet, but Elsa Mayer is leaving the team. So
that's sad for the team.
Yeah, sad for the team there. She'll be moving on. She is going to AWS.
Oh, good for her.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say that or not, but she is going to AWS. And it really was just they had a position up in the city for her, and she commutes from the city down to Palo Alto day after day, and so
that can be a tough commute.
And we still hang out with her. She's working at AWS, which is good, and we like that. And she's going to be running or helping run. I don't know what level of running means, but AWS has a loft area that helps startup. So if you're running on AWS and you need help with startup facilities, they have a loft area where you can come in, use their tables, engage with people, and then they provide the startup services. So sounds like a good gig.
What I'm hearing is that if I'm ever in the city and I need to hang out,
you need to hang out. We got a place.
Okay, I know somebody.
And not only that, but all you need to do is say you're an AWS customer and kind of have an account, which we do because we spend money on the vExpert app and other things running on AWS native. So we can go up there and hang out in the city and get a coffee and
all right.
and give the whole place a hard time, right? Sell some services to a lot of little startup guys.
Hey everybody, how do I monitor my costs? Anybody have a good idea here?
Yeah, exactly. All right, we're at 59 minutes and 10 seconds since we've gone live, so we've done the hour. I hope it's been useful. I'm really excited about our Amazon offerings. We're going to start marketing. We're talking to Tommy Berry about marketing VMware on Amazon, right? Now, people are yelling at us, no, it's VMware on AWS, right? I'm like, yeah, I like saying VMware on Amazon. But, we'll see where that goes. But it is true. We got a lot of offerings now, over 10 different offerings that are really, and with vCloud Health, we're just there now, so should be a lot of fun over the next year or so as we really are entering the hybrid cloud days.
Yeah, exciting.
Yeah, exciting. All right, with that, we'll end the show. Hopefully, we'll have a guest next week. We got our act together, and until then, I hope we see you at VMworld. Go register if you can get the dollars to go. We'll be there, and let us know if we can do anything for you guys. Till then, no barbecue report other than, I'm still on try not to eat too much sugary barbecue stuff. So
I'm going to be in North Carolina. I wonder what I can get there. South Carolina's whole hog, which is what I really want to try. I'll have to somebody tweet at me at VJourneyman. What can I do in Raleigh as far as barbecue?
Yeah.
I need to know.
We do take whole corn, because that's still healthy, and on whole corn in the husk and put it on the barbecue and just grill it, right?
Do you take the silk out first?
No, we just put the whole thing in, leave it completely wrapped, right, and just cook it until it's burnt.
Nice.
You can take some of the green wrap off if you want to cook it quicker. But
Soak it in water ahead of time. Anything like that?
Just put it right on.
Straight on.
Yeah, and it'll steam,
wow.
and
That's
it'll
so great.
get a little crunchy, and depends on when you pull it off, how
Of
well you
course.
do on that. But it does it in like 20 minutes, depending on how hot your coals are, and nothing like that. And then we take a slab of butter, and then we just roll the whole corn in the slab of butter. Just spin it.
I've
and
seen
boom.
that. What
Right.
I tend to do is I have a piece of bread that I heavily butter and then,
And then
just roll in the bread.
roll that in. Yeah. Okay, it's time for lunch, and with that, we're going to let everybody go. Thanks for saying hello on chat, and we'll see you again next week, as always. Till then, have a great day.